Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the City of Kenmore Diversity, Equity, Inclusion meeting to order for Thursday, March 24th, 2022. And I will now take the roll, and I'd like to please ask that task force members please have your cameras on and say you are verbally present as I call your name. Thank you. Darlene Ademba. Juanita Aguilar.
Present.
David Arthur. Marco Ballesteros.
Present.
Lily Bishop. Bill Castro. Bill Castro, I see your name. Bill Castro. Peggy Evans. Peggy Evans. Jeannie Galloway. Carlos Skill.
Right here.
Juliana Pooley.
Here.
Nancy Ty.
Nancy's on her way.
Okay. Aisha Jallo. Aisha Jallo. And Sam Otis. Okay. Clerk, is there anybody else that has joined? Oh, there's Nancy.
Nancy Ty is
Jeannie.
here. Jeannie Galloway is here. And Darlene Ademba did write to us in advance, so she is excused from the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. And we're moving into public comments. And it's now time for public comments. We'd love to hear from you. Please raise your hand now if you'd like to speak, and you will have 2 minutes to give comments. And clerk, do we have anyone from the community who is raising their hand?
Thank you, Leonora. I don't see any attendees for this meeting, and no one has raised their hand.
Okay, thank you. And we'll now move into the approval of the minutes. And at this point, we will move on to that in which you received prior to the meeting. Task force to receive the minutes. I will suggest we approve the minutes through unanimous consent. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Aye. Yeah.
Any opposed? Okay.
I have
And
some
with that,
comments about them, but I have some comments about them, but
thank you, Carlos. And we now move on to agenda items, beginning with leadership insights and then moving on to community engagement strategy regarding focus groups afterwards. And I will now turn the mic over to Shannon. Shannon, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. So you should have gotten a slide deck of leadership insights titled DEI Executive Summary City of Kenmore. So let me tell you what that process was. So I did one-on-one interviews with 18 different leaders across the city of Kenmore in terms of government. And that was specifically all of the members of city council and then all of the members of the directors team. So the city manager and all of the city manager's direct reports. And in order to get some good understanding or grounding on both the current state and the perception of the future state for inclusion planning, but not just for DEI planning, but to determine what the city needs in order for future direction for development of strategy. People that are in leadership roles make future decisions based on where they think the organization is today. Where is the organization financially? Where is the organization operationally? Where is the organization positionally within their market, positionally within their place or their marketplace, and these things. So when you look at the state of an organization, whether or not it's government, nonprofit, private sector, education, when leaders are making a strategic plan about the future growth and direction, they have to first say, well, where are we today, so that we can figure out where we're going to go. And for the city of Kenmore, or for all of my clients, as a general practice and what is usual and customary as part of a needs assessment, which is essentially, let's figure out what exactly it is that we're trying to solve for. I have conversations with those leaders, and those leaders are given what I call the cloak of anonymity. That means that when I have those one-on-one interviews with them, I meet with them for an hour and ask some very specific questions to allow for them to tell me what they think, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't have any skin in the game in that regard. But the cloak of anonymity means that, especially as public figures, they can tell me good, bad, or indifferent what they think about where things are today, what happened in the past that might inform where we are today, or where they think the city of Kenmore is going, and what the prospects of that looks like. But that cloak of anonymity means that I am going to keep secret what individual people said to me specifically, because if I produced a report and I said, Juliana, I want to know what you think about the city of Kenmore and all of these areas that are probably very sensitive in nature to your opinion. And if you think that I'm going to put it out there for the world to see and record it and drop it on the website and then have a transcript for it, you're going to be very mindful about what you say. You'll be probably reserved about what you say. And you'll be kind of conservative in your responses in terms of how much you'll share. But I can't figure out what the path will look like in terms of your budget decision-making, your policy decision-making, or what you think and what informs how you make your decisions. I can't know the truth about that unless I give you the safety and space of anonymity. And so what I told all of the participants, so you'll learn different what you think, I will create some summary notes and insights, and I will share what leaders in the city of Kenmore have expressed. I will share thematically what kind of things are happening, and I'll share insights from your comments collectively. And you'll also see examples of some exact statements that were made by some leaders that I think really capture the spirit of where they believe things were in terms of DEI for the city. But you've also seen the inclusion of some recommendations based on all of the insights from all of those leaders. And so the leadership insights is another component. So you saw us do the SWOT analysis based on the international standards for the city's guiding documents. Now you're seeing what leaders of the city, both council and directors, thought about DEI in the city. But then you're also going to be able to see in the future insights from focus groups. You'll see insights from a community-wide survey, but you'll also see other insights from staff, from a staff cultural climate survey. And all of these things together will help us figure out what the critical elements of a citywide DEI policy should look like. A policy that would impact City of Kenmore staff that work for the city's government, but also what should that policy look like that will impact the community, especially as it relates to processes, programs, and policy. So what should that DEI thing look like? So that's why we're gathering all of this information, because remember, build nothing for them without them. So build nothing for the city's processes without assessing the processes. Build nothing for city's leaders without getting some insights from city leaders. Get nothing from the community without gaining insight from the community. So this is just another one of those information gathering points. So I am going to share my screen and walk you through those findings from the executive leadership insights. There we go. So again, as part of the organizational equity assessment and for the DEI visioning process, my firm was engaged to execute a deliberate, engaging, collaborative process with community and with staff stakeholders to get a better insight into the city of Kenmore's goals, priorities, and strategies. And part of that meant that we had to consider the insights and perspectives of leadership relative to the current state, the desired state, what the work plan, workforce, and marketplace and opportunity strengths look like in terms of those insights. And so what I've prepared for you is a summary report that comes as a result of applying a very specific DEI lens to intentional conversations with all of the members of the City of Kenmore's City Council, as well as all of those members of the City Manager's Office, specifically the Director's team. We spoke to, let me go back. We spoke to 18 different leaders at the director level and at the council level. Each of them had a 1-hour conversation with me or a member of my team. 90% of those folks that were interviewed talked to me specifically. And what I'm going to share are the insights and findings of those conversations. So first, one of the questions in terms of thematic questioning was built around what is needed to move diversity, equity, and inclusion goals forward. What do you think is going to be required of city staff, of the community, for the city of Kenmore broadly? What is needed in order to move the goals of DEI forward? Again, these are some verbatim quotes from some of those leaders. It's just so critical that we have a responsibility to all of our residents and all of our constituents that we do this work in everything that we do as a city. We should be centering equity. We should be thinking about those ways to engage all of our voices in our community. Another leader, this is a very progressive community and they're on board. But here's my issue. The only people that are coming to these and caring about it are white upper class people. It was all white people telling us what we were doing to people of color. And that's fine. It was good feedback, but I would have loved to hear from the impacted people. Another leader, my suggestion, we're interviewing leadership. My suggestion is to interview our staff members because they all have their different opinions and ideas. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a 45-minute discussion, but I think if they were all individually interviewed, get some interesting opinions and ideas versus, hey, leadership, you need to have chats and get these people. Another leader, I think what's going to be really, really important with this DEI policy and planning put together is that everybody's involved. That is not silent, 3 people going, here's our plan. I think everyone needs to be involved, and I think they need to be. Their opinions need to be taken seriously and not dismissed. So I think that's going to be important because I can almost guarantee the folks aren't involved in this, and if not, everybody's heard this policy going to be, everybody's heard this policy is going to not be taken seriously. Another leader, equal opportunities for everyone. Make sure our policies address DEI and that every action that we take considers DEI. Some of our policies are old and do not address DEI. More satisfied community and employees will know that they are being heard, and it's something that we can talk about, and that whatever we develop will not happen in a vacuum. So clearly, you have city leaders that are saying, bring all the voices to the table. Hear from the community, hear from the staff. Don't do what we always do and have a couple of people weigh in and make a decision for everybody. If you're going to get buy-in for this policy, you got to get out there and talk to people. So this is the insight, and this is the general consensus of leaders across the city of Kenmore on both council and in the director's team. They were asked thematically, what do you see as challenges that may affect the DEI initiative's success? What are some of those things that are roadblocks, that are obstacles, that are barriers? What they've shared, one leader, I think people are willing, and I don't think anybody would resist the journey, but there might be pushback on, well, we've got to get this done. And that's the classic conundrum. It's like, oh my God, the urgency. And to do this work well, you need to know that that's a white privilege characteristics urgency. Another leader, if we have residents who don't trust government and they're eligible for these services, how will you reach them? Think that the people here, I think that the people here are, like I said, are very aware of the issues. I just don't know that they've ever done anything formal in documenting how they adapt to them or how they have any say or influence on them. I certainly don't want to be a loud voice in this, but I don't think that's what I should be doing, given what brought this all about. And that was a reference to George Floyd. The fear of doing the wrong thing and ending up on the front page of the newspaper around the world. We're also busy and we've got competing priorities. I think there's probably some fear about that exists in the organization. We don't really have any, like, a lot of data-driven things other than, as the project on time under budget. So is a project on time? Is it under budget? The folks that aren't white are often pretty invisible, and they are not the folks that we hear from week after week. These are things that people thought might affect the success of a DEI initiative. The takeaway from that is that when I talked to all of these leaders and looked at every word of their insights, people were worried that not that the community would be on board, not that most people on staff and leadership would be on board. There was a concern that not everybody within the city of Kenmore's municipality, in terms of government employees and leaders, they were worried that maybe not everybody was on board. There seemed to be a concern that people of color, again, or marginalized people, are consistently left out and not the folks that they're hearing from over and over and over. They want to make sure that those voices, again, another theme, another insight is bring those people that are marginalized, whether that be by race, by religion, by ability, by nationality, anything that would cause somebody to be marginalized in this community. Make sure that we center equity, because this policy isn't just a race policy, it's the city's equity policy. So if this is a race and equity policy, let's make sure that we get those voices that are not our frequent flyers to the table and understand, what do you think? What do you believe? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? Tell us how you're experiencing life in this municipality, so that when we write the policy, we can build toward that. There's fear about being a front page story and going viral for saying the wrong things. There's a fear of not having the information to make good decisions as leaders. And then in the vacuum of knowing the exact right thing to do, people are, they know that they have to do something, but there's a bit of leeriness to do something when it could be embarrassing to you or the municipality, or you become viral, or you get canceled. There is a fear in this space to not do the right thing. Is the city of Kenmore's leadership committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Is the city of Kenmore's leadership committed to engaging really meaningfully and rolling up your sleeves and digging in and doing this work? Their responses: we shouldn't just be waiting for a national, we shouldn't just be waiting for a national tragedy or for a racial reckoning of a movement to begin finally in this country around Black and brown people in law enforcement. We should have been doing that all along, and we should continue to do. And it shouldn't be a one-time thing that we do. It should be something we do all the time regularly. Something needed to be done. But when George Floyd was murdered and the whole nation was rocked, I think that was the final push to change a lot of people's mindsets. I think there's a lot of the inequities in the cities, but nobody talks about it. I mean, we had our proclamations and we had window dressing. We had window dressing. Yes, very committed. However, I don't feel like I have visibility beyond Rob on the staff side in terms of this issue. We are making decisions as a single person. We are sole decision makers, that we have all the answers. I think it's important as we are having these conversations, making sure that our community knows that their voices matter. These are some of the insights that I think best capture the sentiment of leaders across the council and the director. What does a successful DEI culture for the city of Kenmore look like to you? And really the question was, if all the stars aligned across the community of Kenmore and DEI was operating ideally, I asked leaders, what kind of things would you see? What would that look like specifically to you? I don't think I'm saying anything new, anything different than you hear in other cities, but engaging the portions of the community that don't participate in government or in the community at all, or very little. Kenmore, I think I know there's a sizable Hispanic community, and it's sometimes difficult to gain the trust and participation of a lot of city stuff. And so I think the city tries to get them involved and participate in and feel part of the community, but I think that we can improve on that because it's not always successful. Also, the idea would be that those who participate in our community would be reflective of our demographics. And then our own workforce will be more reflective of our community's demographics. We're getting there. I mean, we have a number of Hispanic and Latino people working for Kenmore. We don't have any African-American people working. Oh, except for John Vicente. He's like 40% or something. But yeah, so we could definitely have a more diverse workforce than we do. But I'm kind of proud of the diversity that has been happening in the last few years in our workforce. A lot of processes are committed to getting community members engaged, explicitly including community members. People would have good access to jobs in our area. We don't have a lot of jobs or employers in our city. I would love to see more come here. Equally safe neighborhoods. And we don't have to have these conversations. We live our lives and make decisions that this is just who we are and how we are. The takeaway is that we shouldn't have to, in the future, engage in conversations about DEI, because that would be a part of everybody's DNA. And this will be automatically how all of us think across all of the community if everything were happening right. That every neighborhood would be safe, that every neighborhood would have opportunity, that we wouldn't look at certain neighborhoods differently than other neighborhoods. That was the general sentiment. And again, you keep seeing the same reemerging thing. Bring the community to the table. Hear the voices of staff. Hear the voices of community. Make sure that we have good representation on staff and in businesses that we draw into our community, because people would feel belong here. These were some of the overarching themes. Early recommendations around communication, accountability, understanding, investment, and support. For communication, communicate both the significance and the value add of DEI openly, broadly, broadening the circle to include staff, community, and leadership. Another recommendation is to hold all leaders and staff accountable for DE&I objectives, for that collaboration, and for the key results. Make sure that everybody's held accountable to lean into DEI and are held responsible for forward progress. Understanding, the recommendation is to dig deeper into the experiences and outcomes of underrepresented groups in the community and in the city's workforce. Under investment, adequately resource diversity and inclusion strategy for long-term sustainable success. And then finally, in terms of support, increase efforts to build partnerships, support, and retain local businesses and organizations while reaching both individuals and institutions. And then I broke that down further because it's one thing to offer to talk about the objectives and offer a high-level goal, but people want to know, well, what are some of those tangible actions that the city could take? What kind of things could we do that could be measurable? Under communication, the Kenmore City Council and City Manager's Office should share key highlights from the assessment and strategies resulting in systemic change that comes or is born from what we learn. The city isn't currently resourced to do outreach and engagement because of low staffing levels. There should be dedicated staff time committed to improving communication and engagement with both the community and the City of Kenmore staff. Work to improve communication channels in multiple modalities across the city to include languages other than English, also include American Sign Language and other accessible modes of communication. Create a platform to share past, current, and future DEI efforts. Create a platform that allows for the community to engage with one another around DEI-related topics, issues, and opportunities. I also went through accountability, specifically holding folks accountable. Embed reminders of leadership commitment as a key driver of inclusion for City of Kenmore team members into your communications and strategic planning for DEI. Reinforce individual accountability and perceptions of council and the city manager's commitment to a fair and inclusive work environment in regular DEI communications, particularly those with a call to action for staff and supervisors. Give them some guidance and direction of what they could or should be doing as well. Embed DEI strategy across each city department and establish measurable objectives to hold leaders accountable for results. And then finally, share your strategies, your goals, your data, and your progress with the DEI task force and the community on a regular, public, and ongoing basis. In terms of understanding and deeper, yes.
I wanted to mention that Sam had his hand raised.
Oh, hold on, because I got a couple of, I don't have a screen open to be able to. Go ahead, Sam. What was your question so far?
Just wondering, has this already City of Kenmore members who have been interviewed, or is this being shared with us first?
It's been shared with some, but it's being discussed with me, with you first.
Okay.
And so after the conversation with you, it'll go back to the directors and then to council. So we'll be presenting to council as well.
So are we here to provide feedback on what we think of these?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So once we get through, I'll stop talking, and then you guys will jump into questions. You'll be able to ask for pointed comments and all of that. And again, this meeting is recorded, so they'll be able to go back and reference the meeting and your questions specifically. So don't hold back. In terms of understanding, conduct focus groups among demographic groups with special attention to populations with the lowest engagement with the City of Kenmore leaders and departments. So specifically, go and find those groups that don't show up. Probe into the biggest areas of concern, such as having a voice in equity. If having a voice in equity is a big concern, lean into those things specifically. Address psychological safety, because when I benchmark this issue against other cities that I do this work for, or even for private sector clients, I have never in the thousands of people that I've worked with, have I ever gone into an organization where the staff have said, we absolutely experience psychological safety, which means that we can openly disagree or have an opinion that's different than our leaders and not be afraid of negative consequences if we express it. Psychological safety is a concern everywhere. So address psychological safety so that all employees feel that they can share concerns openly with their peers, managers, directors, and city leaders. Allow city employees access to city council members because council members want that engagement with staff. Establish DEI competencies for the organization, both operational and for employees, for leaders and individual contributors. Build this into performance reviews and hold all accountable for growth and effort toward goals. What are the requisite skills, knowledge, and insights that everybody that does this work for the city on behalf of the community, what should we know to all be able to effectively advance and advocate for DEI across every city policy, program, or service? And make sure that we provide the tools and information or training or workshops necessary for folks to have that, to be able to engage in that way. Regularly survey city employees and community members. Conduct focus groups and listening sessions to ascertain experience and outcome to better inform strategic decision-making. And then collect and analyze data to better inform decision-making. Under investment, ensure appropriate staffing levels to communicate, scale, and support DEI goals and strategies. Identify both internal and external opportunities to champion DE&I through sponsorship, partnership, collaboration, and or resource commitment, including in-kind support. Review annual DEI policy, plan, and goals to ensure appropriate funding levels for successful execution of strategic plans. Regularly review and assess the DEI initiatives for their impact. Are they accomplishing what you hope that they would? And use data and metrics and even staff and community comments to see if that's helpful, both qualitative and quantitative data. And then finally, under support, conduct local, regional, and national talent searches with the goal of recruiting from diverse talent that would complement Kenmore's search for the best of the best in industries with transferable skills. So they don't have to have always had experience working in government to be strong in finance, marketing, communication, etc. Look beyond candidates that just have government backgrounds. Establish a leadership development program to better support and position the succession planning from emerging leaders that, for people that currently work in Kenmore, to build them up to be the next leaders for the future. Establish a municipal leadership development program to better support diverse community members for council, boards, commissions, task forces, and other civic leadership roles. So go out and create a program so that you can bring in people that are diverse so that they can get knowledge and experience and understanding so that they can participate in these many different levers of influence for government. Identify women and racial minority serving professional organizations for partnership opportunities and talent sourcing. Establish a talent development program that provides transition and translation between military members, spouses, or partners, and disabled community members with the goal of closing the opportunity gap, with the goal of building recruitment resources. And then finally, partner with North Shore schools to identify ways to engage students early and help them understand how government works and how to engage effectively. So those were the insights, findings, and recommendations as a result of all of those conversations. And I wanted to stop talking now and give you all an opportunity to share your thoughts, your insights, your challenges, what you see as hopeful, what you find as problematic or opportunities. So I want you to be able to start weighing in now. Let me see. I'm going to stop sharing screen just so that I can pop up, because I see all of that at the same time. Go ahead, Bill. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, we still can't hear you. Is it just me? Is it okay? We can't
How
hear
about
you.
now?
Yep, there you go.
All right. Good evening again. I think one of the barriers for me in the town has been in the COVID era, the government offices were all shut down. I'm kind of a person that likes face-to-face meetings and shaking hands and looking people in the eye. And the inability to get into the building itself was very frustrating. I really couldn't engage with anybody in city government. It's all through the internet or the phone. And I can't imagine being a person that's a minority that doesn't speak the language, trying to engage with the government. It would be impossible, really. And again, more frustrating. And they have than I did. Another thing is that I was looking at the demographics of the town, and they're heavily weighted towards white people. It's about 78% white, African Americans, Native Americans, and other minorities make up less than 10% of the population. The rest are Asians, 12% Asians. The average household income in the town is also rather high. So I'm sure there's a big discrepancy in salaries, a big socioeconomic divide that again is probably really difficult for minorities to bridge. And as we all know, to participate in government, it requires a certain amount of, I would say, funds or free time to do the work that has to be done. So again, I think all those are pretty serious barriers for this town to overcome. I don't know how affordable housing is here. I have a feeling it's non-existent. And there are alternatives being planned for zoning differently and trying to help with that situation, but I can see that being way down the line. But I think those are all barriers too. And then reading some of those comments too, I wonder if there would be, I don't know how to say this politely, so I'll just say it, some racial sensitivity. I mean, to refer to a person by name and say he's 40%. What? Human? Hello? So I found that I didn't even want to bring it up, but I really have to because it really rubbed me wrong. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just FYI, so Bill is referring in terms of the data to the other set of information that you got, the community scan. And that was a whole bunch of demographic information all in the same place at the same time. And I like my team pulls that information together so that you and Will or Bill, I think that you did it. I want to call out that I'm glad that you referenced it, because you were able to see the city of Kenmore through a very different and very particular lens, good, bad, or indifferent. You got to see a lot of demographic information at 30,000 feet that you can see a whole bunch of stuff all at the same time. Carlos?
Yes. So this is a big glob of stuff. And so say it's good in general, or to take it apart in pieces and offer our views. I mean, what Mr. Castro is identifying, those are real obstacles. There's no doubt about that. And there's many more. So our job is to what? To say, yes, Shanine, which I did view this whole report as pretty good, pretty optimistic.
Mhm.
But the question is, what do we do about it? And then once if we say, yes, Shanine, you did a great job, what are the challenges? I mean, the challenges are enormous. We even have to find, like Bill is saying, we have to find people to be able to ask them whether they're even interested in participating in city government.
Mhm.
Do they have computers, all that stuff? I mean, it's a huge thing.
Mhm.
So again, what do we do? Well, I mean, this is a big glob of stuff.
Well, the point was for you to be able to see what city leaders believed, but then also I want you to be able to weigh in, even given the same questions that were the themes that came up. Does it confirm anything for you? Is it surprising for you? Do you think that there's something missing, that maybe you have an insight that maybe they didn't speak to? Lily.
Hi, everyone. So, Shannon, when I say things like this, I feel like usually I'm not heard, but I'm going to try my best. I've been in this country illegally, in a sense that I wasn't here with the purpose I had that was official. When you are in that position, you're very afraid to even answer the census. So I know Bill pulled up the report and I had a similar comment last time. Even quantifying these individuals is challenging. And I wonder if we can collaborate a little bit on that, because there might be a cycle in this that we have to break. You talk about outreach and people need to feel safe, but if they don't see themselves in an outreach or in a front desk of the city, they might be too intimidated to come in. So does the city have to look like the community first and do for to be successful? I see the right things here. I'm just having a hard time piecing them together in a way that works. Because I can tell you this, it's very intimidating to talk with city leaders somewhere, sitting behind a desk and like others mentioned, you don't know the language, but you're also afraid of, even being visible, because you want to be invisible so you can just continue to do what you're doing and working and earning your money. So that's where I'm struggling.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Lily. And what you highlight is has been true for many decades, that people that are living invisibly in the shadows, trying to keep a low profile because their household may have they may have even a blended status even in their homes, and so they don't want to call attention. And especially in the previous administration, where there were specific threats and call outs for some of these
right
homes. And I saw in my work firsthand how that impacted not just adults but kids as well, because kids were terrified to go to school, worried that their families would be home when they got out. So there were higher levels of depression and I gotta call it out. When President Trump was elected, in those first months, kids were terrified after the immigration ban, were terrified to leave home. And so sometimes the only strategy is to address what you and others have said, that, when you're you can go and show up in person, not everybody's comfortable with that. Some people can't even, and what I'll tell you is there have been higher levels of participation because people didn't have to show up. They could just log in and log off. But for the population we're talking about, especially for people that may be lower income, if you have a prepaid device, do you want to use those precious minutes for a council meeting or task forces or boards and commissions? Right. But then also sometimes, and this is really one of the best the best practices, if Shannon wants to talk to a community where I'm not a known entity in the community and I'm doing something helping the government and you don't know me and I show up, people are afraid of that. But if I say, let me find out who those people are, that may be the auntie, that may be the grandma, that may be the religious place or the social service provider or el centro or a tribal community. Let me find out who has credibility and trust to them and seek their assistance. And I collaborate with them that they can work with folks to get that insight to share with me. Because sometimes I can't be the person at the table. I got to provide for material support, resources, or whatever, so that my community collaborator can get the information that we're seeking and anonymize if they have to, and then share that information.
So, yeah, Shannon, I'm glad you saw this. And when Trump was elected, I saw that too, because my nanny, who's Mexican, came in crying. She didn't know anymore if her humanitarian visa was going to be renewed. And we had to go through that. But I have to say that one of the things we can all connect is in parenthood, for example, and kids go to school. We don't have a Spanish program in Kenmore. I have to drive my son to only bilingual school in the district. And when you get there, you are on a wait list of the wait list of the wait list for being out of district. And the only reason my son went in was because he was already bilingual and they had to balance the class out. So what an opportunity to connect when they have to show up. They want the best for their kids. And school could be a big bridge. But what I see here is that we have a huge Hispanic community behind the city council building. They don't even have sidewalks, right? They don't have a school who speaks, who offers their language. I think we're missing out tremendously there. Another point of contact is the library. Maybe there was one program, with Spanish speaking. So I think that these opportunities can be created. And if we are going to partner with our other organizations, I hope to see input with the school district, because that can be where we meet a lot of those people.
Thank you. Sam?
So going off of one of the things that was said earlier about partnering with North Shore schools to engage students early and help them understand how government works and how to engage effectively, how much say do we have in what schools residing in the Kenmore area can say? Because I know there's North Shore School District that's in the Kenmore area, but they also have schools reaching out in a wider area. So how would that work?
The school board has a superintendent at North Shore, Dr. Michelle Reed, and they have a school board, and they are the ones that determine the rules and policies of the district. Cities work in concert with them. They collaborate, but ultimately when it comes to policies and rules of a district, that rests with the superintendent and their school board. And with the state of Washington's Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, there may be rules that determined for a district by the legislature, but otherwise the districts govern themselves locally. But rare is it that the mayor or the city manager in the municipality doesn't have a strong working relationship with the district, that they collaborate across many issues, because it's to both of their benefit to do so.
So for this one that you were suggesting for the support, how would you recommend that City of Kenmore does about and like implements things such as?
My recommendation is that they partner with, for example, the Office of Equity, and to bridge a relationship that would allow for them to advance those best practices, and work with both communications and curriculum office to make sure that there's some alignment. But that would come with working with staff, and then getting their buy-in, and then ultimately working with their school board. But I'll tell you that I know for a fact, what I know for sure is that this is an issue extremely important for schools, and I don't think that you would get a fight from them to advocate for making sure that kids better understood how to be civically engaged, especially around equity issues. And then if you have some ideas or suggestions, by all means, let them be recorded today so that people will know.
I mean, just stating a simple fact that North Shore School District doesn't have something against slurs. Like a kid can say a slur and there isn't any policy against it. So I'm actually with another equity team at Inglemore that we're trying to work to make sure that there's something in place. But that's just something to think about, that BIPOC kid at school can be thrown a slur at, and then they have, and when going to administration has to group it in something else. They have to call it bullying, harassment, intimidation, but it's not calling what it really is. It's really racism, but they're just kind of hiding it.
So what I'm hearing is that Sam is suggesting that North Shore schools should have a race policy, and I know that other districts have them, so that you can call an issue what it is and deal with it appropriately. Good call out, Sam. Juanita?
Yes, you mentioned, because I was going to say, getting trust from the community, that you go to the people who are trusted and you give them knowledge to go back and send this knowledge out and get that information back. I know that there has been in the past community psychologists that reach out to the clergy, even bartenders and hairdressers. So thanks for mentioning that. Also, by getting engagement and feedback from those people, because the policies or even the activities that are in our place, somebody mentioned that we don't have much going up to them, but those activities developed by the people who are not the population that they're trying to get. So it's in developing apps. If I want to develop an app for a child, I would need to go get usability testing from a child and not just automatically assume a child would need this. So I think that would be important. I think hopefully you would start seeing people show up if the population that's underrepresented, if they were to put in input of what they wanted to see and how they wanted to participate, then you'd see that grow. And I would also like to see we're going to do this activity. I would like to see kind of people, the people who develop those based on evidence of why other things have worked from other programs around that have worked, because you don't want to so I think by doing it database and also evidence-based of what's worked, that's going to have a good chance of succeeding. And also we're doing this because of this, and that's easier to also get support when it's evidence-based. So I'd like to see that, but I would like to see also that I know that's also being afraid on other sides. You know, you don't want to be implement something that you could be scrutinized for. And that's another reason to go to evidence and data driven. And so I think these need to be more based on that, because it's science, it's evidence. So I would like to see more. And honestly, it was surprising to me that some of this stuff wasn't already done in Kenmore based on data evidence. That was kind of surprising to me. So hopefully going forward, this will change.
Yeah. Thank you. Nancy?
You've shared just so many rich recommendations from you and your team in your results presentation. And my question is if there are any conversations or might be conversations on how the council or city may prioritize these recommendations. It's exciting that there are so many opportunities for growth for sure, and also thinking about I guess another experience, just being really excited at the beginning and having lots of energy, but realizing this is more of a marathon than a sprint, and how can we implement these recommendations in a sustainable, longstanding way, and knowing that, you know, there may be limited resources, whether that's financial or people power. But yeah, just wondering, with so many wonderful recommendations, are there conversations on prioritization or what that may look like?
Keep your microphone on, Nancy, because I want to ask you something. So I was the city of Kenmore. It was to produce a very specific deliverable. Leonora, what was the deliverable that I was asked at the end of this process to hand them what? Oh, you're mute.
A policy.
A policy.
Yes.
So they simply wanted an equity policy. But the way that my mind works, Nancy, I like to plant seeds. So they wanted a policy. I gave them a cupcake with a lot of icing and a whole list of different kinds of sprinkles. And you're saying, how should they prioritize from the icing and sprinkles? But what they really only asked me was for the cupcake. So Nancy, are you saying what I'm inferring? You tell me if I'm wrong. Are you inferring that they should look at all of the learnings from this whole discovery process, figure out a way to move beyond just the policy and to develop a plan that Juanita, and are you saying that they should build a plan based on data so they can decide for prioritization, both impact and strategic direction? And Nancy, you're saying that they should resource a plan like that so that they could be sure that they're moving beyond the policy into strategic development? Is that what you all are saying?
I think what I'm saying is you are clearly a master baker.
Yes.
Now, this is not my rec. I want you to tell me, is that based on what you're learning so far? Is that what you think?
That's what I think, yes.
Oh,
All right.
oh, okay. All right.
Would they not let's look at this and want to tackle those issues, like, and prioritize? I'm sorry, but I thought that was a given.
Different people engage a consultant for different deliverables.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you as a council and as city leaders, you come to the table and you say, you know what, we need a policy.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the middle of discovery, you do say, you know what, I think we need more than just the policy.
Right.
I think we need an addendum here.
Juliana?
Yes. I want to thank everyone, especially Lily. You've made some really, really fantastic comments. I just had a couple thoughts too. One, I wanted to validate the barriers of engaging the city council. I moved back to Kenmore in 2000, 2018, the winter of 2018. So basically right before everything shut down. And partway through pandemic, I was like, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to like use my voice and my education, and I'm going to do this. And I saw that there was a previous Coffee with the Council initiative that was in person where people could gather, but in whatever stage we're at now, it's been virtual. And so I tried to engage a few times. One time the link didn't work anywhere, and I was just kind of, you know, I don't have some of the same barriers that we've talked about, and I was still struggling to engage. Then the second time I engaged, and there were 2 city council members, which I've already shared with you back, Shannon. There's 2 city council members present. One did not have their camera on and said almost nothing, and the other was just carrying the whole conversation. And there's 2 other people there that were also white and had come with very heavy, well-researched issues. They were just ready to like dive right in and monopolize this time. And as someone who's new to wanting to engage in the community and like engage with the city council, it was very interesting to realize I felt the social pressures of like, oh, maybe this is casual that they have notes, they have talking points. I just wanted to share my notes that says, hey, I support affordable housing. How are you guys doing? Like, I was prepared for a very casual conversation, and me coming like 10 minutes into the hour meant that like, it was just a very different experience than I was expecting. So I just want to speak that as someone who had the resources and ability and maybe some social capital to engage, I still felt some social barriers. And so I love that Kenmore has the Coffee with the Council nugget, but I feel like we could grow from that, maybe more times, maybe also, if, you know, as mask mandates and things unfold, part of me is like, the Coffee with the Council assumes that the community members are coming to the council. And I'm thinking, if we are having this level where we know that there are neighborhoods and populations engaging, part of me is like, why can't the 2 city council members show up with coffee and sit in the middle of a mobile home park, or the middle of the senior housing, or right there at St. Mary's, or, you know, the middle of the North Shore Summit, if you want to, you know, make the rounds to everybody, and just, you know, I feel like they are coming to us and we aren't like talking on a Zoom screen where they're blacked out and we hope they're listening. And, you know, so I love that Kenmore, like, the city has started, but I feel like take that step and don't expect us to come to you. Also, I just want to say that going through your slide deck is a different note. I was a little bit surprised about the Kenmore lack of outreach services. And I think I just wanted a little bit of parsing out on if that was what outreach was being talked about. And the reason I was surprised is, so Kenmore recently had like the Kenmore Cares funding for pandemic relief, and they've been funding all through social media. And I got, I think, multiple mailers. And there's at least once that walking through Safeway, there were volunteers passing out like full page, large print, like, get your pandemic relief funding, we can talk to you. And in my mind, I was really thrilled. I was like, oh, wow, they're giving out like full-size mailers, you know, with big print. And I think maybe I was, you know, projecting, but I was under the impression that the volunteer who handed it to me also had the capacity to speak another language. So in my mind, this was months ago, I was already like, way to go, Kenmore. Like, you're really doing at least Kenmore Cares outreach well. So Shannon, do you know, like, was that an anomaly? Does that mean that Kenmore doesn't have outreach services for other things?
That was, well, Leonora, I'll let you and I both tag team and speak to that, but that really was, Juliana, an anomaly.
Okay.
And I
know happy anomaly.
Oh yeah. And Leonora and I have been working with Lauren. Yeah. So we've been working with that team and and Janet, what's Janet's last name again? Quinn, Janet Quinn. So we've been working with a group of people, a team of people that are very motivated, that are very dedicated, that are doing everything they can, because they're trying to do both outreach and engagement, but they're also wanting to apply a DEI lens to that. So they have been very intentional since late summer, early fall, and having more intentionality around communication and modality, and doing more even in communicating with Black History Month, just everything that they've been doing, especially for ARPA funding. So they've been very intentional to kind of kick it up 10 levels. But you know, whether or not that's sustainable is to be determined, because the city of Kenmore as a municipality, Leonore is the head of HR, but they have less than 60 people on staff. You have teams in the city of Seattle government where that may be what a single team is. So Kenmore is a small but mighty community, but you don't have that high level of staffing or the higher level of budget to allow for some of these things. So even when it comes to outreach and engagement for the DEI initiative for this project, my staff is the staff that's on loan, that's doing all of the outreach and engagement for the city, to make phone calls, to send emails, to make inroads, to drive traffic to this process. My team, we leverage my team to drive all of you to the table. So so there's going to have to be, you know, when you talk about prioritization, a commitment, and you know, what does it look like to reallocate or reprioritize different funds, if it's the desire and will to do more in terms of outreach engagement, but also to have that be something that city staff do more of as well for their own departments.
Also partnered the North Shore School District to do a lot of that outreach as well, as many of you may know.
David?
I should speak to what Juliana had said about engaging the council. Last year I was running for an elected position, North Shore Utility District, and I was out looking for endorsements from council members, and I contacted them directly. And usually I get a response back, usually within a couple days. And then I would actually get their cell numbers and we'd actually have a conversation. Sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 2.5 hours. So that's one thing council could do, is that encourage the citizens of Kenmore to actually contact them directly, emailing them. That's one way to get their voices heard. But definitely, I would say that the outreach, definitely, you know, if they hire someone, it should be probably using the DEI lens, or have, you know, since the Hispanic population is the largest minority in the city, is maybe someone who looks like them, so they can gain some trust with the city, know that they're going to be heard. But definitely, the city needs to do more than just a policy. Actually need to create an action plan, for sure. I look forward to seeing that. But looking through the stats that you sent out about the city itself, it looks like, you know, it's a tale of two cities. You know, high income and then low income, for sure. So that was surprising for me. But definitely I can see why the council is doing their missing middle housing project. But I think, you know, missing middle is still going to be too high for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely this DEI work is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Lily?
I have a suggestion, and would it be possible for the city to have a team of volunteers, since there seems to be a limitation in budget, staff time, they're busy. Engage us with a volunteer function, for instance, I would be happy to outreach behind the city and knock on doors. I actually would get paid to do that by my employer. So the city doesn't have to pay me at all. I think there is a strong desire, especially with everything that's going on in the world. People want to do something. And perhaps that's something you can tap on.
I think that the city would love to, even in the conversations that I've had, continue to engage this task force beyond this project. Is that true, Leonore? Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, and it goes back to, I love the bullet on looking beyond candidates with municipal backgrounds for talent. Maybe some people have an interest to join the city, and that will give them a taste, it will be a test drive. I'm biased of that, and Leonora can speak to that, because when she called me for the task force, I said, you know what, I would hope to work for the city one day. And I thought this was a great opportunity to get to know the process, the staff, and what it would look like.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Bill?
Yes. From a healthcare environment, we had problems with engaging minority populations to get maternal health care. And they would have higher rates of mortality for themselves and their babies, along with other issues. And with the communities, they identified individuals like Lily is recommending that would go out in the community, and there are individuals of the same population that were well-spoken and were known in their community, and they would recruit the mothers to come to clinics and get their care. And maybe Kenmore can do something similar, recruit people among all the minority populations and then set them out in little outreach programs once a month, once every 2 months, and maybe a world festival every year where you engage all communities, all cultures, all religions to come and celebrate in the town. Internet access is a privilege, I think. The cost is prohibitive. A cheap internet won't allow us to stream correctly. You also have to have devices to communicate through the internet. So maybe the city can afford to subsidize internet for people below a certain socioeconomic level. Maybe a grant can be established for that. We live in probably the most technological of all states. A lot of wealth is concentrated here from those industries. Maybe we can set up a sort of a prototype or experiment. And there's also new technologies evolving, like the Starlink, that are going to be apparently more affordable. And maybe, again, the town can subsidize that. That's it. Thank you.
For that. Peggy?
Thank you. I was actually thinking really similarly along Bill, Lily, for talking about the community aspect and the outreach part of it. I also have a healthcare background, and we have community health workers who basically are people from the community who go out into the community and help with things like social determinants of health, right? Because I come from healthcare. So things like transportation, housing, food insecurity, et cetera. That would go really a long way in helping equity with our minority populations that are maybe struggling. These are things that a lot of people of wealth just don't know about, because they're not things that they need to deal with, especially, I was thinking with inflation, housing is incredibly expensive. And I don't know if rents have gone up. Food, if you've gone to a grocery store recently, it's incredibly expensive. Not to mention gas, right?
Meat's a luxury today.
Absolutely. So I think more than ever, now is a good time for us to think about community work people with resources. This is the type of time frame where it can really kick someone from being holding on tightly to housing or whatnot to living in their cars. So if we're really interested in equity, we have to help people hold on to what they have and not slip in times of increased stressors and increased finances.
Thank you for that. And just for context, I'm gonna come to you in just a sec, Carlos. Just for context, so Peggy mentioned social determinants of health. And what that means in terms of a high level concept is that when you go to a healthcare provider, your health outcomes have very little to do with what happens in that exam room. That the bigger part of your health outcome has to do with all of those different systems within a society that impact your life on their own, but collectively silos and built environments, natural environment, policing, healthcare, race has been now determined to be a social determinant. So all of those individual aspects of your life that on their own that you're working for a good outcome or a good experience, but all of those things together, what is the impact of all of those things together in terms of your outcomes where it relates to health? But social determinants of equity for a community is how are those individual factors all coming together that impact your experience as a member of the community? Peggy, what I would love to see is so you have healthcare workers. I like the idea of a help care worker so that the help that you're doing is providing for care for people across all of those social systems.
Yeah, I was thinking, basically it's community advocacy.
It is.
You have navigators essentially that community folks just find resources.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Carlos.
Yes, I think the only thing that I can add to this very, very excellent discussion is the necessity to keep in mind of an inclusive written style.
Yeah.
So that when you or the city council or anybody else, you write whether it's English or not, to write it in a style that isn't jargon, that isn't. I mean, I have trouble reading some of this stuff and trying to understand what is being said. I think the best example of that in the documents that you sent us are in the minutes of the last meeting. There's some jargon phrases there, and so all I'm saying is think in terms of an easier, more open way of writing whatever it is that you're writing.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that call out. My grandmother would say that when you're explaining things, sometimes you have to put it down to where the goats can get it. And so you want to be able to speak plainly so that the average person on the street can hear what you say and then respond, oh, I know what you mean.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thank you for that call out. Jeannie?
Hi. Yeah, I was just kind of maybe piggybacking on what I was saying, and I really like this idea of the community advocates. And we were also talking about, as one of the boxes that we shared earlier, about leveraging partnerships. And so I just kind of wanted publicly said that Bastyr University, right here in Kenmore. I mean, we're training healthcare workers, we're training masters of counseling and psychology, we're training masters of public health students, and every one of those master's programs has a capstone project. So I really think there's an opportunity, not just with Bastyr, but a lot of different organizations in Kenmore to do some leveraging and find those places where we can have students engaged and involved and going out in the community in a really targeted, meaningful way. And I know that Bastyr would be interested in that. So let's capture that and make sure that we continue to work toward that.
Thank you for that. Juliana?
I just want to echo the research and value of outreach teams. In a previous career in the Bay Area, I worked in homeless services, and our county was launching a multi-prong outreach team of social workers and partnering with like public health, and the public health fans would come and something to these specific sites and do, healthcare on site. And something that was a really interesting outcome we had is we expected that the homeless individuals who were living in their car or eating at shelters, we expected that they would be responsive and engage in these mobile outreach services. But what we were surprised by is how many people, as I think Peggy talked about, that were just like holding on really tight, and they were in poverty and they weren't homeless yet. When those outreach services came to their neighborhood or came to their local church, it didn't even have to come to their parking lot, but it came to part of their community where they felt safe. They were engaging too, and they were engaging in services as preventative resources. And then a third, more longitudinal surprise is how many people who were these upper class, well-established households and community groups were thrilled to know that there were outreach teams, because suddenly when they saw someone who was maybe in their parking lot or in their church congregation, or they suddenly knew what to do. I think, as someone mentioned previously, sometimes you have these portions of the community that have never engaged in crisis management. And so they don't even know what services are out there. And so if they see someone, they just think, do I need to take this person home with me? Do I call 911? Do I take them to the emergency room? What do I use? What do I do? And we were really pleasantly surprised in Contra Costa County by how many cities actually teamed up to fund more outreach services for their individual city. And these were very white influences, yeah, because suddenly everyone was so excited that there was a solution, and it was an easy solution. And even one of the great things about outreach services is, even when you have people that are kind of NIMBYs, but not in my backyard, like, yeah, outreach services solve a problem, but it doesn't necessarily need to house it. And so I just want to say, I love outreach services and anything, food, social work, libraries, language services, anything. I'm big support.
Thank you. Juanita?
Yes. So what it sounds like, we're talking about using cultural capital to get some work done. And I love that. So I also want to say, and looking over what we had talked about today, the accountability, how important it is for, it says, embedded reminders of leadership, embedded DEI strategy across the department, how important that is to keep that, to embed those and keep it every day. So it's part of who we are every day. This is what we're doing, reading that up close. Detachment is detriment to a policy plan and to this. So I really think that's important to embed it in everyday life. So hopefully that will happen, but I just want to say how important that is. When I'm developing an app, I'll go back every time I start working, I look at the mission, because I don't want to, it's easy to go off and, oh, I'm going to do this and do that, but it's not part of what I'm supposed to be doing. So we need to keep on task and keep that focus of DEI in our everyday lives. So I'm hoping that accountability, that's important for the leaders to be doing. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, everybody, for this conversation. It's really been just wonderful, enlightening, and I love it's just innovation. It's, problems are ideas. It's amazing. So this is, it's been great tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we went through the agenda items, which were essentially leadership insights. And then the second part was community engagement strategies, specifically for those focus groups connected with community. And so all of you have listened to the last 40 minutes. So you spoke directly to what you'd like to see, what you're recommending in terms of what that strategy should look like and connecting with the community. So sometimes having those leadership insights, that was that natural gateway into this is what we could and should be doing with on your call out, Sam, engaging with the schools, and on our recommendation, Nancy, of learning from all of this information and leveraging that to talk about the fact that there's a need for something even more than the policy. And then, Peggy and Juanita to make sure that thing is data driven, qualitative and quantitative. And to make sure that Bill and David, that we're listening through lots of modalities and lots of sources, and making sure that we're, as Carlos says, speaking to the community so plainly that we're not talking down and being condescending, but we're communicating in the way that the information is accessible to everybody. And so that's just, kind of some of the call outs from folks, because everything is front of mind right now. But, I take away from this conversation the fact that it's clear to me what you all feel should be the priority, what you think the method should look like, and what's important in engaging. And that was really what I wanted to listen for tonight, Leonora and I, to learn from. So we'll take that into our strategy as we move forward to bring in the community, engage in the community, so that then we'll be able to come back and present to you, these are the findings, this is the modality we use to engage the community, and this is what the community has had to say. But we'll share with you when those focus groups are happening, so that you all can spread out among the group and participate and listen and learn as well, so that when those focus groups are happening, then we'll be able to share with you the information so that we can bring you along with us to the extent that you all are available. But otherwise, that is all that we needed to cover tonight. I know that our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 7th. So same time of day. So Thursday, April 7th, from 6 to 7:30. And Carlos, what did you have to say?
I'd like to see the transcript of this meeting, so you can send me an email later to see how I can see it.
Yes.
Leonora?
Yes. We will have, it looks like we have a transcript that will be provided.
Good, thank you.
If you need that. Thank you, Carlos.
Leonora, was there anything else that you feel like we needed to cover that we haven't? Any information that we had to share?
Well, I just wanted to say that there were a lot of great ideas shared today, and I want to thank everyone. As you can see, we have a ways to go. We need you on this task force. And you're here because of the extensive outreach from staff in collaboration with Shannon and her team and their efforts in the outreach, because of our slim resources. So thank you, Shannon, for casting that wide net with us. And that being said, I'm hearing some folks on the DEI task force are open to future volunteer opportunities. And so thank you for putting that out there as well.
Yeah. Aisha? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here. I've listened to the previous meetings that I've missed. So I have been quiet, listening, and trying to really learn and get to know each other based on their comments and their experiences. So thank you so much. I am learning a lot. I am extremely excited. This came at the right time, and I am honored to know and work with each and every one of you. And I look forward to learning and collaborating and making Kenmore a little bit better than when we initially moved in here. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
You.
Aisha.
Thanks, Aisha. Let's make it a lot of it better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's see.
All right.
So-
Anything else?
Yep, that's all that we had for this evening.
Okay.
If anybody else would like to say anything, because we have 2 minutes left, if anybody else would like to say anything for the good of the order? Any insight
Okay.
you'd like to share or anything you want to say to close us out?
Okay.
All right.
All
So
right.
I'll pivot to you, Leonora.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for participating. And that being said, meeting is adjourned. Thanks.